unmanageable and I'm powerless. And the whole world now is experiencing the first step with this pandemic. Our lives are definitely unmanageable and we're powerless. The difference is that we have 11 more steps in this fellowship that we can apply. And one of the things for a long time I didn't realize, and probably the first 20 years I didn't realize it, is that I was doing, I would say, a mental recovery. And I didn't know that. I mean, I wasn't conscious that, you know, all I was doing is trying to figure it out. And if I could only do that step, then I'd be okay. And if this, you know, which step? And it was like, I heard Kurt Z last week. He said something about the fact that it was a mental prison. And I was in a mental prison with the black lines almost. And I used them inappropriately for me. Just for me. That's just my story. It wasn't that I wasn't working this program. It wasn't that I wasn't doing the steps. It wasn't that I didn't have sponsees or I wasn't into service. But what I was doing is I was holding it in between my ears. And I had no idea about that. And around 20 years of recovery, I remember sitting one day and thinking, you know, I just had like a moment of clarity. And I want to tell you, at that time in my recovery, a lot of things happened that probably shifted it. When I was about 17 years in recovery, I went to Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's Hospice and Grief Institute and studied death and dying, and ended up a few years later with a social work degree and became a hospice social worker. And I think that has an awful lot to do with the shift that happened for me in my emotional sobriety. But at 20 years, I remember thinking to myself, I really didn't feel as though I had been catapulted into the fourth dimension. I didn't have wonderful, you know, there was a lot of stuff still happening for me. And it was concerning. And I remember I was reading the book one time and I was in Bill's story and it talked about him turning things into his newfound friend. And I thought, do I think of God as a friend? That was the biggest key for me. I don't know how to explain it any other way, except that almost cracked me open because I realized I wasn't raised with any religion that I had to really get rid of. But I came into this program and they said, act as if. They said things like, you can borrow my God. And, you know, I did a whole bunch of things like that. But I failed to see where it said I came to believe and apply that to me. And for some reason that day in pondering that thing, I realized that I had actually knew there was a God. I'd seen things happen with you people. I'd seen things in my family that were profound. I knew there was a presence, but and I periodically had feelings of that and so forth, but somehow I wasn't connected at all times. And I believe for myself that in the first 20 years, I did a lot of step work. And I believe that when I got to the 6th and 7th step, when I finished my 5th step, I had knowledge about what Mary Thayer had been up to, total knowledge. And unfortunately, subconsciously, somehow, when I did the 5th step and I felt as though I could look the world in the eye and I felt as though I was holding God's hand, you know, hand in hand with the universe here. And the problem is that as soon as I felt better, I dropped God's hand and I went back into self-sufficiency. And that, I think, was the culprit for me. So I never continued to keep that presence of God coming with me. And as the steps have gone on and as the years have gone on, I've realized that behind each one of these steps is an opportunity to know this creator. And it told me that right in the beginning. It said that the main thing I was going to have to do is find a God that I could do business with or do business with me on page 45. That meant that we were going to talk about things that were spiritual as well as moral. And I, for years, didn't understand the 4th step at the level I understand it today. The 4th step just says to write a fearless moral inventory. And it doesn't say to write a fearful garbage inventory. And although there's a lot of garbage that I put in there, I had to find out how I was, what morals and values and principles was I going against. They could have been, and what are my morals and values? Not my parents or my sponsors, but what are mine and where am I going against them? And as the years have developed and the gift of being able to do 12-step retreats, I found that line on page 68, and it said, we could ask God to remove our fear, because I don't know about you, but as I do the 4th step, when we get to the fears, I realized that all the things I wrote in my 4th column were motivated by fear. They weren't motivated by faith at all. And those things that I thought were defects in my character were survival skills, because by myself, I had to survive. And so I would manipulate, lie, whatever. We could go through all that. But one day I realized, number one, that I had been doing, I'd say I believe in God, wonderful, but I didn't bring in the friend. And as at 20 years, I realized, do I think of God as a friend? I have a best friend. I know what that feels like. I know, I think she's on tonight. Miss, if I could see your face, I'd just go, yeah. We've known each other since we were 6 years old. If she walked in this room, I'm talking to you from Tampa, she's up in Massachusetts. If she walked in right now, I'd nod, she'd nod, and I'd feel safe. I'd feel that energy come into my being. And what I was failing to do with this program was to bring that energy through the steps with me. I went into my mental area of figuring it out. I didn't see where it said we listed these things. We put them in front of us in black and white. I added a line and figured it out, is what I thought. The minute I wrote something down, I thought I had to figure it out. I missed the gift of step 6 and 7. And as years have gone on, and I've been doing it a little bit differently since I was 20 years sober, I realized that I needed to have love and compassion and forgiveness to do the rest of the steps. If I only had my intellect and I went into step 8 through 12, I would be doing it so that I'd feel better. And I didn't have those qualities. And I had to learn to wait on the Lord. I had to learn to wait on my best friend. I had to learn until I felt a shift within my being. Emotional sobriety, I think, comes very slowly. I don't think that it's an event. I don't think that I am emotionally sober in some areas of my life. I am in other areas of my life. But it meant that I had to be willing to do the drill. Remember Don Pritz said something to me, and probably a lot of you. It's not selfish to live your life the way you want to live your life, but it sure is selfish to expect somebody else to live their life so that you'll be all right or that I'll be all right. That was the turn on the emotional and the detachment. That was when I realized that the deep down inside of me, the fears that I wouldn't get what I demanded at that time kept me locked into relationships that I shouldn't have been in, kept the people that were in relationships with me, expecting them to fulfill some expectation of mine, into one of that it was conditional, not unconditional. Didn't even understand I was doing that. I didn't understand it at all. But then I started to look at the fact, I'm a mother. I realized many inventories on being a parent, realized that there was nothing wrong with what my kid was up to. What the problem was that I was abandoned. I had a lot of abandonment issues. And for whatever reason, unconsciously, I made my child everything responsible for me. When I saw that in inventory around 30 years of recovery, I almost died. I thought, oh my good God. And what happened is that I realized deep within my soul that I had put on unreasonable demands on someone I loved so much that she should be responsible for my life. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. And along with that, at around 30 years, my whole world started to shatter. All my belief structures that I had about family, about every value, all my values started to shatter. And at that moment, when I went through that, something beautiful happened. It didn't feel like it. Nothing's funny when you're going through it. When you're growing, nothing's funny. But what I realized was, in order to grow in some type of emotional stability, I had to let go of my demands, and I had to live in reality. Reality is the last thing I want to. It took me years. I'd see that I was driven by 100 forms of, fear. Absolutely. I know that. I know that that was it. But it wasn't until I realized self-delusion, that I was so deluded that because I had X amount of time or whatever, that I was okay. I had this unconscious driving saying that if I only get this, then I'll be all right. But if only this happens, I'll be okay. And the truth of the matter is, all of those things got shattered for me, and I was okay. Didn't make any difference. And that was the kicker. And hindsight going back, it was exactly what he wrote in there. My basic flaw had always been dependence. Almost absolute dependence on people or circumstances to supply me or supply my ego with everything I wanted. I had an outcome. Again, I'll quote Don Pritz. He said to me, "We're here to do God's work, not his job." And I confused that. I realized 5 years later, after hearing that I was attached to his job in the area of wanting to know the outcome. That, I want to know the outcome, then I'll do something. I never wanted to do the work. Okay, you want me to turn this, that 6 and 7 step, when I humbly ask God to remove these defects of character, I have to be humbled. And I've been humbled in this program. Humbled. I don't wish it on anybody, but I also wish it on you, because the other side is so much better. What I'm trying to say is, at 20 years, I realized I had a God that was a friend. When I worked these steps from that feeling of feeling safe and connected with my friend, as I gradually went through the 6 and 7 step and have gone through what I usually call, a furnace of being refined, with my impurities are being kind of gone away, necessary suffering, as Richard Rohr would say. And I come out on the other side, I feel a presence. And that continues to grow for me. I've realized what happens for me is that not on my own, of myself, I know I'm nothing, but there is a presence that allows me to respond to people versus react to people. The areas that come up where I react are the areas I'll bring through a step. They become my teachers. They're not my enemies. They're not something they did. I don't build the whole story in my head anymore, because the committee always wants to make me right and you wrong. But instead, I use different tools of realizing, oh, that was interesting. It's like this wonder came up out of it. The curiosity came up. It became like an adventure, a real adventure, not an obstacle course. It became a point whereby I'm okay until I got to the 10th step. The reason I do these steps is because I'm after the effect. The 10th step answered for me something that I loved. I had a situation I was going through, and I had done some inventory, and I never wanted to go and do something, hurt anybody. And something happened where I did hurt somebody. And I remember sitting there, and the person was quite upset with me. And I remember sitting there and praying and saying, God, last thing I wanted to do was hurt anybody. Why is this happening? And out of my mouth, I got the promises of the 10th step. I responded sanely and normally. I didn't defend. I admitted that I was wrong. I said, you know, you're right. I was wrong. I remember the moment when it was like I was placed in a position of neutrality. I saw reality on what was, is. And when I get pushed into the reality of what is, I see the truth. I see both bad and good. I see both bad and good. I don't see, oh, it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I see the bad and the good, but there's a presence with me. There's a feeling with me that I'm not doing this by myself. I think that we can really build a relationship with a presence. That a lot of people know me. I go around and I say, you know, if you're praying for me, just pray. We're going to have a hurricane here a couple of years back, and I just gotten a place down here, and I'm just 30 feet from Tampa Bay. And I remember I was praying, oh God, I hope it doesn't hit Tampa. Wow, I was praying. I was in New Mexico at the time. And finally one morning I woke up and I said, listen to me. I'm praying that everybody else gets devastated by this hurricane. Wrong prayer, I think. And it came to me where it just came to me. I said, I just pray everybody feels the presence of God. If we could just feel the presence of God, we'll be all right. Emotional sobriety. I witnessed it in many of our heroes. That's why I knew it existed. I still know that I haven't arrived anywhere, but I do know that I have a different way of feeling okay. I might be alone, but I'm never lonely. There's an energy that is present with me that helps me to see each day a new thing. Just before just before the sun went down, we've had thunder and lightning. I thought, oh, I wonder if I'll have any electricity to even talk on this thing. But there was lots of thunder and lightning and everything, and I kind of was in on another meeting, listening to a friend speak, and just as it ended, I stopped and I thought, I turned around and the sky, if you don't think there's a presence, my God, it was so surreal. Everybody knows I had to jump up and take a picture. Hopefully I caught it, and it'll be up on Facebook later, because at that moment, I didn't care if I was going to speak on this. I didn't care about anything. I just knew that I was in the presence of the presence. And when that happens, no matter what's going on, I'm okay. I'm okay. I want to go back to page 52. The bedevilments were wonderful. I love those. I use them all the time. It was Clint Hodges that said something about the bedevilments that shifted me into this emotional stability, or I don't know, stability, but sobriety. He said, for you people who think, you know, you answer those 8 statements or questions, you know, am I having trouble with personal relationships? Am I prey to misery and depression? And it kind of goes through all of those 8 statements. And most of the time I could say, no, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Today, if that was the way it was, I would probably say to you, no, I'm really doing all right. But if you turn and say to me, Mary Thayer, do you believe God has brought you as far as he can in regard to personal relationships? Immediately I will tell you, God, I hope not. Immediately I will tell you, prey to misery and depression. No, I'm not in a fetal position or anything, but there's areas of my life. God, I hope he hasn't just brought me as far as he can. That shifted the way I looked at this program as a long timer. So yearly, when I go through the steps, and I do this yearly, I ask myself, I sit and I say, has God brought me as far as he can in this? And there was a time when I wondered, why did I just tell you I was fine? And then why was it that I just said, no, God, I hope you haven't brought me this far. Please, God, I hope not. Beverly Douglas was my sponsor. And she's told me something, and it's the truth. The answer is on the next page. So if you go to page 53, it will tell you, and I read this when I was 20-something years sober. It went on and it said, we have gone far over the bridge of reason. And it goes on and it says, it goes on in the next the rest of that page on 53 to the bottom of page 54, where it talks about reason, and it's capitalized. Reason is capitalized where it does not need to be capitalized. And I remember stopping and saying, why is this capitalized here? Huh. And I started to ponder it, and I kept looking at it, and I realized that I had developed, for the first 20 years of my life in AA, a God of reason, rationale, and logic. And I was relying on, I built that. God didn't. I built it with my mind. Remember, the main problem, sun is in my mind, and here I am building this thing. And it was at the point where I read on page 129 that we've struck something better than gold. It's limitless. This is limitless. And it will pay me dividends for the rest of my life, as long as I mine it, insist on giving the whole thing away. I want those dividends. I want it all. I want to have, kind of like what Bill was saying, why is it that I react like a child? And not that I don't still, I'm kind of goofy. I am most of the time anyway. But I also don't think that I am in such reaction that it's a big drama anymore. God, what a relief that is. What a relief from those ping pong voices in my head that want to jump up and tell me everything. There's some peace in there. There's like a little crack of light like I saw in the sky tonight. Whether there is hope here. It's great. As I said, I learned a lot about death and dying. One of the things I learned, the most I learned with the privilege of doing that, is that I had to be authentic with anybody that has a terminal illness. And as the years went on and I worked with people in their final stage of maturity, I realized that we alcoholics have a terminal illness. And we have to be authentic with each other. I can't throw black lines at you if I don't have heart behind it. Bill, I don't think would have gotten sober if he hadn't seen something had gotten into Ebby. There was something about his eyes. For all of you that knew Don Pritz, we all know what that is. For you that didn't know Sybil or didn't know my sponsors or didn't know other people, there's many people walking around this planet now that have a state of being because of these steps and because of this way of life that you just feel safe and protected with them. I want that. And I want that, and I'm willing to go to any lengths to get it. I will close with this one thing that Hugh Douglas used to say. That was my sponsor's husband. He said, Alcoholics Anonymous is the only place where you go from adolescence to senility. Nobody ever gets to maturity. So just to the extent that you humbly rely on your best friend and do what you think that God would have you do, will he enable you to match calamity with serenity. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate the time.
Oh, I don't think anybody's ready for you to be finished yet. I think
I think I did.
Yeah, everybody loves you so much. And it's just such a privilege to hear you share and hear all that experience. So this is kind of a crazy deal. We started out as a small men's meeting with the guys that I sponsor, and then we started with the Zoom thing, and then tonight we blew 100 people, and so what we usually do is we'll open it up and have people share. I think we'll have Chris, if you guys will be patient with us, I think you can raise your hand on this, and Chris, can you do that? Can you quarterback that? So Chris says he can do that. So if you'll raise your hand and keep your shares to maybe 4 or 5 minutes, if you have a question or want to relay your experience, we'll open it up. I know there's a lot of Mary Thayer's friends on here and a lot of people who have a lot of great sobriety and great stuff to share. So I'm going to mute myself and we'll open it up to everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. It's so great. It just warms my heart to see so many of you. So there we go. Why don't we let Tom kick it off? We got 100 people. We can't be bashful, you know. Tom, can you unmute Tom?
Hi, everybody, I'm Tom. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi.
Hi, I was just able to get into the meeting just literally 2 minutes ago because it was beyond 100 when I tried. And so I didn't hear the topic. I just heard the end of the chair, but I want to thank the person. I'm in Des Moines, Iowa, first time of your meeting. I want to thank the person that hosted this meeting on emotional sobriety because it's something I've just recently discovered in the article in the Grapevine, so it had a great interest with me. And I'm going to pass it on right now to Chris S. and Emily V. right now, if they'd like to share. And hopefully I can get some more information as I get dialed into this meeting. Again, thanks everyone, and it's great to see you.
Thanks, Tom.
I meant Tom, you, Chris. I'm just kidding. But it was great to hear from you too, Tom.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Tom.
Hi,
Tom.
Tom, alcoholic. MT, thanks so much. Absolutely. I absolutely love listening to you. And like you once said about Clancy, I'd go anywhere to hear you speak too. And I would have died if I wasn't under you. I'll tell you that right now. I think, you know, for me, it's just over and over and over again. It's, you know, I get to this place of surrender. I've had these, I was thinking a lot about, you know, Clint Hodges used to talk about in the third step, what are the 5 things that I'm not willing to let go of for a closer relationship with God? And Bob Olson talks about taking all the chips and pushing them all in, like not holding back anything at all, you know, from spirit. And I've been there, and then, you know, I go backwards. You know, I've been there, and then there are things in between. You know, I've been at a point where there aren't any things that I wouldn't willingly give up for a close relationship with God. And then life comes in, and I attach to things. You know, and so for me, it's been a constant deal of doing this. You know. And I remembered, you know, I've been scared a lot during this, you know, will I get COVID? Will this happen? Will someone I love get it? And we have people back in New Mexico or have cancer and just various different things that have scared me and stuff. And I had an experience in Russia about 6 years ago where I really thought we were going to die. We were on a snowbound road and a crazy guy driving us for 8 hours through Siberia, you know, and all of a sudden this calm came over me, and I thought, you know, if I died right now, I'd be okay, because I don't have any unfinished business that I can think of. I'm here in service of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I just felt together. I just felt like, you know, it's all good and it's all okay, and I'm not even afraid of death. Even that promise about you won't fear the hereafter, you know. Washed over me, and I felt like that for a bit, you know. But then attachment comes back, you know, and life comes back and stuff. So for me, it's a constant process of surrendering and resurrendering, you know. But I love you so much, as you know, and you mean so much to me and so many people, MT. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you.
All right, Sherry's got her hand up. Let's go ahead and, Sherry, you should be unmuted.
I'm an alcoholic named Sherry.
Hey, Sherry.
I just found out about 30 minutes, well, no less time than that, before this meeting. My sponsee was telling me about this. And so evidently it was meant for me to be on here. And I'd like to thank you, Mary, for sharing your experience and reading this. This is one of my favorite letters from Bill W. When I was introduced to this, it used to be in a little small book called The Best of Bill, and it was 4 stories that he had written to the Grapevine, and one of them was it was faith, honesty, something they labeled them like that, and then the last one was love, and it said emotional sobriety. And so that's when I first read that. And it didn't make any sense to me. I was early in recovery. It didn't really have an impact on me, other than the fact that it said in there at the bottom, it had a little footnote that said that after Bill discovered, when he looked at the St. Francis prayer that time that's talking about in there, that he never had depression again throughout his life to the extent that he had had it before. And so he had a real spiritual experience with that St. Francis prayer. And so I have had experiences with the St. Francis prayer. It's a very powerful prayer. The St. Francis prayer and Thomas Merton's prayer, Thoughts in Solitude. Those are two of my favorite prayers that I've learned since I've been in AA. Never heard of those prayers before. And also, I was just talking to Tom Yu not too long ago, because I've been on these Zoom conventions, you know, ever since this Corona thing. And I heard your name, Mary, a few times. And then I was talking to Tom, and he was just telling me about you and how special you were to him. And so then, boom, right before this meeting, I come on here, and here you are. So God meant for me to meet you tonight, and seeing other people on here who I love, like Sam and Darren. A bunch of us have been on the Zoom meetings. When I go on those Zoom conventions, it's usually at least one Nashville person in each room. It's like we were sprinkled out or something. And Tom's just been everywhere. He covers Santa Fe and Nashville. So, but this emotional sobriety gave me hope, because it is possible. But when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's for people when they become old timers, you know. Well, I didn't drink and I didn't die, and now I've become an old timer. So, you know, here I am looking at emotional sobriety. And I've been hearing a lot in the Zoom meetings this term, intellectual spirituality and intellectual sobriety. And what you were talking about tonight, you were talking about that intellectual thing, and that it shifted to, you know, to a emotional, more pure kind of sobriety, if I could say that. And so it has finally gone from my head to my heart now. And so many things are going on, but you know, I've had a real calm experience through this coronavirus thing. I have been doing pretty good, but now with all the racial tension, racial violence, I'm beginning to have nightmares again, you know, nightmares like I had growing up, you know, nightmares from negative experiences. But, you know, this is where I got sober, and this is where I continue to have to be. I mean, I can't imagine not going to AA here in the South. God planted me definitely to be in the South to get sober, because if I would have been depending on being with Black people, if that would have been a reservation for me, well, I can't get sober unless I'm with Black people, then I would have died, because when I came into the fellowship in my hometown, there were no Black people in there. And I remember my counselor told me, when you go home and go to your first meeting, you stand up and you ask those white people to help you. And he didn't even know where I was from. It was prophetic. And I got in there and I said, oh shit, how did he know this? And I stood up and I asked for help. And I got the help that I needed. And as a result of this Zoom thing, I went to my first meeting with all Black women a few weeks ago in Queens, New York on Zoom. And then I took it to Africa. I went to Africa, and then I went to Japan. And I've just been spreading my love all over the world, you know. But thanks for this meeting. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, because we do have a program. Those other people are wilding out there, but we have a program and we stick together no matter what. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Looks like Wyatt's had his hand up for a while.
Hey everybody, I'm Wyatt. I'm an alcoholic from Venice, California. And what a blessing it is to be here with everybody today. And I want to thank you, Mary. I wanted to hear you for a long time, you know, I don't know how many years, and so this is a real treat. And thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sherry. And thanks for everybody putting this together. And especially thanks to our friend who brought us all together tonight, big amigo that happens to be here in our hearts. And I wanted to participate, you know, because I can be like intimidated because, and, you know, I get a little nervous when I share and stuff. And so I think it's good to actually do that, because if I don't, then it doesn't help. So the whole subject of emotional sobriety is something that I've been, you know, kind of dealing with a lot, you know, lately. And I used to kind of confuse the whole idea would be like emotional sobriety meant not feeling anything anymore. So when I recovered from this or that, that meant I didn't have any feelings about it anymore. Maybe a personal relationship or an event in the past. And, you know, as I grow in my sobriety, I'm learning that that's not necessarily the case. To not have feelings doesn't mean that I've recovered from whatever it is that I'm dealing with. I think that personally, I think emotions are the treasure of our lives. And I think that they're there for a reason. And if we have some inner clarity, they will help direct us and to discover what God's will is for us. I think they're like little signposts. I think we have this sort of finely tuned uh, biofeedback system that it tells us what's happening, and if we're in tune with it, and if we can be sensitive enough to it, it will help guide us and show us the lessons that God wants us to learn from our emotions. Whereas I've spent many of my years using whiskey to not feel anything, and now, you know, having the courage to feel is something that's, you know, continued to been a new experience through all the years of my sobriety. And I've also seen that I don't have to sort of be my emotions. So like you know, I have all the feelings. You know, if you cut me, I bleed. I'm a human being. I have feelings. They can be hurt. And but if I'm angry, it doesn't mean I am anger. I don't have to be my emotions. I am angry. I've seen that with God's help, I can be witness to my emotions and be once removed from them and not necessarily have to act upon them, which has been another blessing, because then I have a little time to get some clarity before I make my next my next move. And this whole notion of what Don P said to you, Mary, about something about I can't just throw the black lines at you without having some heart behind it, you know. And I've been thinking about this too. It's like, so our book is a basic text instruction manual, and it's like, you know, if you get instructions, how do I put this bicycle together, you know, and that's great. You know, if you can help someone to understand the instruction manual, you know, that's all fine and well, but I don't really look at it as some sort of real accomplishment in my life that I know how to deal with an instruction manual. I know how to put a bicycle together. I read the book. I can tell you how to read it. That doesn't really mean anything to me. What means something to me is, like you're talking about, the heart behind it, the experiences, the ability to be with someone and feel safe and protected with them, and to speak the language of the heart with another human being. This is the treasure of life for me. This is something that is, you know, it continues to be a gift that is untarnished by time. It continues to shine brighter. And anyway, I just wanted to thank everybody for being here tonight. And this is a great meeting, and I'm glad I got a chance to get into it. I want to leave you with one last thing, is that, you know, I used to, you know, basically my life was all about intoxication. I wanted to be intoxicated. If I wasn't intoxicated, then things were not going well for me. And that I carried that into sobriety also. I really, you know, I wanted to be spiritually intoxicated. I've experienced spiritual intoxication. And one of my sponsors said, well, you're still intoxicated. You know, this is not sobriety. It's something beyond intoxication. It's a different kind of experience. And it's something that maybe to say, you know, we get a chance sometimes to experience a peace beyond understanding. And that's something I've had to call upon here during these crazy times. Spiritual life is not a theory. I have to live it. It's not a theory now. It's happening. We're in the middle of it right now. And this is where we have to, the rubber hits the road. Anyway, I just feel a lot of unity with everybody tonight and a lot of love coming from my heart. And I want to thank you for letting me share. Thank you so much. Bless you.
Thanks, Wyatt. Hey, is Juanita on here? Let's see if she has anything to share.
Hey, hey Sam. Hey MT, how you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I was gonna call you this afternoon because and I thought I bet you she's napping, so I better.
I was. This is late. Old people.
I just figured. Thanks MT for sharing. It's been an interesting thing today because I started this step workshop with some folks last week, and one of the things I asked them to do was to pay attention to their body and to, notice where they were with their bodies. And, what sucks is that if you're going to tell somebody to do something, you got to do it, And so, I've been aware of my feelings and all this stuff. And watching what it does with my body. And I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I just want to be oblivious. I want to move and do and stay busy. And, it's almost 34 years of being in this program. And I still will run from feelings. I will still run from feelings. I know, you're surprised, right? She's there shaking her head. She knows me so well. But, I will still run from that. And I don't even know I'm running. And so I didn't even want to do this. In fact, I kind of put it aside for a while. But in the last couple of days, I'm like, you're going to have to, you better start doing this thing, And so this emotional sobriety it's not an easy thing. The intellectual stuff, the knowledge, I get that, And it's like, shouldn't I just be able to apply it all once I get the knowledge but no. And the body is so tied in to the emotional stuff that I think it's time to really pay attention. And it's not like I haven't. I mean, I grow slowly. I grow so incredibly slowly. And, if I live another 20, 25 years, maybe I'll do a little bit better, but I'm slowly making progress. It's like the horse that's like the man is pulling the horse, and that's me going, I don't want to. And God's going, that's okay, just keep coming, come on, And it's like, do I have to really? Anyway, I really thank you right there, because I would rather go to that big R, the God of reason, than go to the inner stuff and really rely. Let me just keep busy and let me just keep moving and doing and all this stuff. Sit still. Who wants to sit still? And it's in the sitting still that the stuff comes to you, And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to be willing to do that, And it's something that I don't always have. It comes in spurts. And it probably will continue to be that way. And one of the things is that I can't fight the way I am, and I can't fight the way I learn. And it's okay. It's okay. And there's those times in between that I know that it's all okay. And I have more and more of those, and they last longer and longer. And I love you. Thanks, MT.
I love you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Benita. All right, looks like Laura has her hand up.
Thanks. My name's Laura. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, everyone. I didn't drink today, so I had a good day. And thank you, Mary. You touched on so many things that helped me understand emotional sobriety. in something that has been elusive to me. And for that reason, I now have a better understanding of what I'm looking at. I'm an undisciplined alcoholic, grew up with alcoholism in my family. So my mom was very immature and I became the mother. And so she sent me to bed when I lost a game. That's how immature she was. And so I really have a lot of growing up to do. And emotional sobriety eludes me because I get temper tantrums, you know, my diaper gets wet, and I have a difficulty understanding feelings. I mean, never mind running away from them. I have to identify them. I'd called them a funk for so long. And now I know I'm on the right track. To have a relationship with a higher power like a friend was so helpful to me. And I want to thank you for giving me that peace tonight. And it's great seeing everyone. Sherry, thanks for being real. And hope you all stay sober and stay safe.
Thanks, Laura. Looks like Michelle has her hand up. Michelle S.
Michelle, I'm an alcoholic. Good to see you all tonight. I live in North Carolina. I was thinking about when I came to AA, I thought you guys were going to teach me to drink Sprite instead of gin, and instead I found a whole heck of a lot more, and I'm so grateful for that. In my early sobriety, I'd worked the steps, and I was trying to figure out how to apply all this to my life, and I had made a request at work for an extra resource, and I got it, and I was really excited because this was like, you know, things were kind of slowly coming together. And I called my sponsor real excited about getting this extra resource that I had requested. And my sponsor was not excited, not excited, but just simply said, my sponsor said, I don't think that God cares if you got what you wanted or not. This just like burst my bubble. And my sponsor said, I think God cares how do you act, whether you get what you want or didn't get what you want. And this just, you know, it took all of my excitement out immediately because I knew my sponsor was right. Where, and in this reading, and in this letter, this wonderful letter, the piece that comes to me over and over again is, where is my dependence? If it's on people or outcomes, if I'm only happy when I'm getting my way, I'm not going to be happy very much, right? In my drunk days, I was like a plastic bag in the wind. You know, if something was happening, it was my way, I was happy. If something wasn't, I wasn't happy. And that was a horrible way to live. And so when I came to AA and after I worked the steps, I started slowly to learn a little bit about me and where my dependence was and how to have my dependence on God so that no matter the outcome, I was going to be able to move forward. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Michelle. Let's see if we can hear from Kate R.
She's gone.
Sure.
Well, we don't want to hear from you, Brad.
Good, thanks.
Brad, put Brad on there. Where you at, Brad?
Hey, hold on. Here she comes. She's back. You want her? Oh,
Yeah.
she left. Never mind. She got to drive home.
Well, you talk, Brad. We miss you, buddy.
Hey, I'm Brad Toll. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I don't have anything. I mean, you were hard to press to find me at a time where I don't have anything to say. I woke up this morning, spent some time with God for the first time in a couple weeks. I've been at odds with people as a result of my lack of discipline in my spiritual life. And, I have very little emotional sobriety to speak of. So it was really an honor and a privilege to hear people that are doing the work. I continue to come to these places so I can hear all these people that I love, my heroes like Mary and Tom and Juanita and everybody else who's been on here. And I just keep, hoping that I catch fire, for longer periods of time. I don't, it's tough. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Keep coming back, Brad. Let's see. Looks like Heather P or Heather R has her hand up.
Hi, I'm Heather. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, MT.
Are
MT,
you-
you broke the Zoom.
Huh?
You broke the Zoom.
I did?
Yeah, people couldn't get on.
Anyways, you safe and part on your trip?
Yes,
Oh,
halfway.
sorry, I sponsor her and she's kind of traveling and I want to make sure she's okay. How
Yeah,
are you?
but I'm good. So that was a beautiful talk. And and then when Juana was talking too, I was thinking about how when I think about like my own sort of emotional stability or my emotional sobriety or my spiritual maturity, it's so limited. And I'm unaware. I think this is where sponsorship is so necessary. There was a time Mary Thayer and I were going someplace and she rear-ended somebody. She was drinking an iced tea, couldn't get it back in the cup holder, and she rear-ended somebody. So everybody stops and she gets out of the car. The very first words out of her mouth were, "I am so sorry. It's completely my fault." The very first words, not, "I don't see any damage here," not, "Why did you stop so fast?" Not anything other than, "I am so sorry. It's completely my fault." And I'll never forget that because I'm thinking, who says that? My first reaction when it happened was, all right, let's get the story. We have to get the story together because it can't completely be, your fault. And it was such a lesson to me in emotional sobriety, in spiritual maturity. And I can't come up with that on my own because on my own, I am going to cut an edge for myself so that I come out looking okay, so that I end up getting what I want or feeling a certain kind of way. And I think I can't do this in a vacuum. And at 16 years, I'm really starting to realize like that's a real thing. For real, I can't do this in a vacuum because I cannot figure it out on my own. And I do not have a clear picture of myself and my actions and my motives. And that's what we do for one another. And so I'm wicked grateful. I was sitting here crying like, oh my God, I know her. It just felt like that moment of like, I'm a part of something. I'm a part of something in a way I never was before. And it has very little to do with me other than showing up. And God has placed these amazing people in my life. And so for that, I'm very grateful. Thanks, MT. Good job.
Thanks, Heather. Let's see if we can hear from Pat P in Gulf Coast.
Hi, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Pat. Mary, thank you. That was very enjoyable. Emotional sobriety, that can be so tricky sometimes. I know that one of the things for me, and I've got a few 24 hours myself, and one of the tricky things for me sometimes is even still being able to name an emotion. And, I have to refer to a feeling wheel every now and then just to be able to sit there, name the emotion and be able to sit in it and feel it for a while. And I know that lack of naming those emotions is, coming from a family where I had to stuff emotions down so far that I just, and I came from, a family of verbal abuse. And so I never grew up knowing what emotions actually were. And so sometimes I don't even allow myself to feel emotions. And I have to really think them through even today. I'm much better at it than when I first came into the program, but it is really a process for me. And I have to allow myself to work through that process because I don't beat myself up over it. And I had a lot of years in the program where someone said to me, yeah, but how do you feel? And I had to look at that person and say, I'm sorry, I don't think I can name a feeling. And so emotional sobriety, I realized a long way into the program that I really didn't have much yet, that I was going through a lot of motions and I was doing a lot of better things, but I really couldn't name what emotional sobriety looked like for me. And even though I was doing the next right thing, as we talk about in the program, I had to actually be able to sit down and start looking at emotional charts to start looking at naming my emotions and really learning to feel what those might feel like. And I'll tell you, even today, some of those just feel like they're surface emotions for me, and they don't get real deep yet for me, just because they weren't something I learned early enough. And I think that for some of those emotions just never get to the depth we maybe hope that they will, just because they weren't there at an early age. But I still have hope for myself. There are some that I have that are deeper, and some I question, but it is still just a process, and one that I know that I work on a daily basis. So I think this was a great topic this evening, and Mary, thank you for all your insights.
So great to hear from you, Pat. What about Colin from Australia? Colin, what are you doing, man?
Oh,
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, my name's Colin. I am an alcoholic, and yeah, look, this emotional sobriety stuff, I'd love to talk in, with depth and weight, but I'm just sitting here in awe. I can remember seeing Mary T speak in between speakers at a Fellowship of the Spirit gathering in Colorado, and I just, I thought, who is this woman? Like, with such presence and such a connection and such a a beautiful way about expressing this thing that we're chasing here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And thank you for your talk tonight, Mary. Well, it's morning over here. I'll say tonight for most of you guys are in the US, but it's morning over here. Yeah. What can I say? I got nothing other than thank you and thanks for bringing me in, Sam. I'm here with Damien and Sheree, and I'm sure they'd have a few words to share as well. So yeah, look forward to seeing you guys after this COVID stuff. I want to get over there and hopefully to see you guys over here in Australia as well. So all welcome to come. Thanks again.
thanks.
What do you say, Damien? He might have turned it off. Hey, Chris, you got anybody with their hand up?
Yeah, we got Evelyn and Barrett in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yeah, hi, I'm Evelyn, an alcoholic.
Hi, how you
Hi.
feeling?
Doing good. I had a good day today. Yeah, good
Good,
to see you.
thank you. Good to see
Uh,
you.
Yeah, I really liked your share. The thing that jumped out at me the most was when you were talking about the God of reason. So I was working on a 4-step maybe almost about a month ago now, and I think right after I had done my 5th, or as I was writing it, I don't remember, but I was reading that part of the big book with a sponsee, and I was just like, oh my God, R is capitalized. And I had never really paid much attention to that before. And so much what I was looking at in this, some of the thoughts that were coming up for me as I was writing was like, for that column of like, how would God have me be? Well, and I was like having this debate. I was like, well, I would be faithful. I should be trusting. And I was like looking up the differences between like what those words meant. And, you know, trust is like something that has been demonstrated, like it has been earned. And I was looking back on my sobriety and reflecting, wow, you know, like I should really be trusting. Like at this point, God has shown me enough. Like there are so many experiences that I have. And I was really blessed early on that I got some really like flashy, showy, like God is here moments. You know, like early on, like one of the ones was like I had violated probation so many times that I got my sponsor's phone number. I went up to this guy at this first meeting I went to, and I was like, can you give me a woman's phone number? Like, I'm gonna drink if I leave this meeting without help, and I might be going to jail on Monday, but like I need help. And he gave me this number and I called it and I started like doing the stuff. And like, little do you know, I go into court and like they shackle and handcuff me and they put me in the penalty box. And I like walk out of that court free, unstipulated from treatment. I don't know if any of you guys know about that, but that doesn't really happen. And all I did was like, I got to go back to my parents' house and continue doing AA and continue working with a sponsor. I mean, so that's a miracle. And then if you fast forward like years later, I'd gone through school, I just finished getting my master's and I was in the process of applying. Like when I finished my bachelor's, I was like thinking about like, what is the kind of jobs I want to do? Like, you know, what is this? AA has been wonderful to me. I've been able to like build a life and go from somebody who had, you know, probation and courts and all that kind of stuff to what do I want to do with this life I've been given? And so there was this like company that I was like, well, this is the kind of work I'd want to do. I never thought that I could actually be there because they all went to their like Ivy League schools and all this stuff. And I'm, you know, went to community college and a state school and like have this lengthy record. And anyways, but after the end of the master's, I am able to start applying to that job and I get an interview and it was really exciting. And then I found out my partner, this was a job in Massachusetts, and I found out my partner got into a PhD program in Michigan. And I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, this was the job. And, you know, it just so happened that they had an office in the same place that he got into school. You know, I had no idea about any of that and it just kind of worked out. So like I have lots of these really big flashy things to say, like something's taking care of me and guiding my life. And, but when I was looking at that, I realized like staring at that page and seeing that R capitalized, I was like, that's all just reason, you know, like I'm on board if I can see the results. I'm on board with God if it's looking like that flashy picture of like and getting the results of the things I want, like walking out of court and landing a dream job. You know, I'm on board then. And I remember, Mary, you gave a talk you took us through part of the big book at this little meeting I host. And it was part of, I think it was Bill's story we were in, I don't remember, but it's the part that says like simple but not easy, a price had to be paid, right? The price is letting go of the results. And so I just remember sitting there with this sponsee and I'm like, process, like all of this is like, it's just coming in and I'm like, oh my God, you know, like, yeah, I'm on board if I get the results I want. But am I ready to step from bridge to shore? Am I ready to really have unconditional faith and let go of the results? Man, you know, and I don't know, like I've been sitting in that and looking at that and waiting to see what will come. And I loved when you said, I don't remember the guy's name, but you know, that you can just feel the presence of that person, and when you're in their presence, like everything's just okay. I sat and looked at Barrett and I was like, you know, Heather does that for me. Heather, the one who spoke a little while ago, she's my sponsor, and she's was that number I got, however, you know, became my sponsor ever since. And she's been that presence for me. You know, she used to, when I'd have some like situation early on, because there was always like a catastrophe situation, and she had a job where she would like have to go to like different food banks and stuff like that. So she would just pile me in the truck, you know, and nothing really happened, but I just knew I would be okay. You know, by the time I got out of that truck, by the end of the day, I'd be okay. And, you know, and this is also how I know God is really kind and loving. It was like 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, I had gotten this fabulous job that I was so excited about. And, you know, it was the source of my everything. And didn't you know, it wasn't doing what I thought it would do. And I was subtly becoming a wreck without even realizing it. And, you know, because I knew the answer, like I knew the thing I was supposed to say, and I knew that I should just like do the turnaround, and I was intellectually trying to make it happen. And I had planned this trip down to Florida with my friend for a long weekend. And I didn't really know like how bad I was getting inside. And then it just so happened that Heather was going to be in the same area that weekend because she was asked to speak at something. And so we get together, and the same thing happens where all of a sudden, like, you know, I feel the thing, and I just start spilling my guts. And man, I was such a wreck and didn't even know it. I was such a wreck and didn't even know it. And, you know, that's how kind and loving I'm always going to be taken care of. That's one of the best examples. Like, even when I don't know that I need to ask for help, if I need it, I'm going to get it. And just sitting across from each other. I remember her saying, she's like, you know, sometimes I think you're better than you are, but I forget, you know, because I know what to say. I know what I'm supposed to sound like. I know the answer. So I also feel really grateful to be a part of this, and the benefit of all of these Zoom meetings is I've really gotten to know my sponsorship family, which is spread out all over the country, and see how wonderful it is to be a part of and hear people speak language that makes sense to me, you know? Because sometimes I say this stuff to other people, like, what are you talking about? So I'm so glad that there's people that understand me. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Evelyn.
Hey guys, we have about 9 minutes left, and Mary Thayer, I wanted to maybe ask you if you would mind expanding upon this a little bit more. I've heard you speak before where you talked about how you had a belief in God, and then it moved into a dependence, and kind of the difference between a belief and dependence. You know, when your daughter, I think, was sick, and then she got better, and then so there was some belief there, but then you know, you talk about 20 years having to enlarge your God concept, and the newfound friend, and where you really kind of began to really lean into God in those moments of a little bit different between knowing and depending.
Well, you know, it's interesting what you just said. And of course, my ears just came up because I went through a book study, and like all of us, I think, at least in this chain, we're all working with that prayer to set aside everything we know and everything we think we know about the book and the steps and God. And after doing that was when I found that big capital R and realized that I had been depending on reason, rationale, and logic, and nothing wrong with that, nothing at all. But it doesn't go far enough. That was the kicker. And I didn't do that consciously. I didn't realize that I was doing that. And then I started to ponder the fact that every time, I don't think anybody in this meeting tonight is sitting where you're sitting if you hadn't had some type of a spiritual experience. Just to even walk into an AA meeting. It wasn't the in thing to be doing, but lo and behold, my babysitter's mother was sick of me leaving her all night, I guess. And I got 12 stepped in. Sorry about that. That had no reason, logic, or rationale connected to it. Think about every spiritual experience you've ever had. It just poof. And there's like no reason, rationale, or logic that was connected to it. And yet I was relying so much on that. I think when I came to the point on realizing in reading in the morning and asking God to direct my thinking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives, one day I realized that it said every morning. It didn't say once. I thought you just have to make your bed once. I didn't understand that you do this, it becomes part of your life. I realized that every morning I woke up with self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. Until I asked God to direct my thinking, my thought life was always about me, 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 the alcoholic opera. And I think one day I realized that when I asked that, it didn't say my thinking was on a higher basis. It said my thought life. And I, of late, have been using kind of a visual where it's like I wake up and I'm all about what Mary Thea is going to do and oh yeah, I have to ask you. And as soon as I ask God for that, it's almost like a little trap door opens in my head and higher thoughts come in. And they're not about Mary Thea. That's surprising. You ever wake up and realize you're thinking of somebody else? It's amazing when that happens. It's fascinating. So what happened for me is that I had a lot of things removed. A lot of things removed, a lot of beliefs on how to be a friend, how to have friends, you name it, lovers, husbands, you know, got a lot of things removed. And my belief structure on who I was as a person, the false persona that I placed in front of you so that you would like me, was shattered. And I remember doing an inventory, listening to an inventory of a woman one time, and I thought she was, you learn so much from your sponsees, really. And she said, she was talking about a significant other or something, or somebody she was involved. We're all talking about that when we first come in. When you get older, we don't talk about it so much, but we do in the early days. And she said, you know, she said, I never told anybody who I really was. I wasn't authentic. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, you know, I people please so much that, and how would I ever expect you to care about me and know me and fill my heart and soul if I never told you who I am? That rang so true for me. I had a mask for every single thing I had to do. And I developed them out of fear. And so, as I said, when I got to the fears and I saw that fear had motivated me completely, and when I said to God, God, please remove my fear, what would you have me be if I wasn't being fearful? That's all I did one day. And it doesn't say to list it, but that was the kicker for me that changed me. Up until then, I was living with all your values and principles. It's kind of like walking over a footbridge without any railings. But the day that I sat and I said, God, what would you have me be if I wasn't being fearful here? What would I be? And they were principles. It was honesty, open, trusting. Well, if I was being trusting, what would I do instead, as it says on page 69? What would I be doing instead if I was doing that? And I wrote out an ideal that I hope to go for. And that is the difference. And when you do the 7th step and you say the 7th step prayer, for me, it shifted when I saw God, grant me strength to go out from here to do your bidding. Do you know how much strength it takes to be honest? To not kiss somebody's ass, be a kiss ass, as Hugh Douglas used to say to me, you kiss ass. Takes a lot of strength to be authentic. Takes a lot of strength to be kind when you'd really like to tell someone off. Takes a lot of strength sometimes just not to say anything and just step back and allow them to have where they need to be. Takes a lot of strength to speak up and tell you who I am and what my feelings are. But when I got God on board as a result of a 7th step, you will feel the presence. That's what, if people know me, I go, people say, how you doing? I said, I'm waiting on God. I'm waiting on God because I don't feel enough to do something. It doesn't mean that I'm not in 10, 11, and 12 in areas of my life, but there's areas of my life I'm still waiting on God. And what that means is that I have the trust to be as authentic as I can be for where God wants me today. I just have to do this today. You know that? Tonight, when I go to bed, I'm a recovered alcoholic because I've been in recovery today, because I've meditated, because I've connected with my spiritual program, all right? Tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'm not recovered. I haven't done anything yet to earn that. I only have this for today. I only have it today. And my mind wants me to think, oh, but you've got 46 years. Page 30 talks about it. It has to be smashed like we're like other people or presently may be. I was attached to prestige, which is image, 30 years before I broke that one. 30 years before I was trying to present to you somebody I wasn't. Today, I'm who I am. It's like Heather was so shocked that I got out and said, I'm sorry, that's my fault. What can we do? The guy didn't know what to say. His partner who got out was going to sue me, but this guy looked at me and he said, it's all right, ma'am, and just drove off. I didn't know how that was going to come out. I didn't know how that came. So God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. When we get a hold of God, I have a best friend. I don't have a punishment. I don't have to live up. I don't have to be just so. I just have to show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and not be attached to the outcome. And that means trusting. I've been playing with this for a long time. So far, I'm here. A lot of people know I got real sick. I really think I died. But when I came back, I said, whoa, still here. Oh my God, what a gift it is. What a gift. Look outside. Everybody has to stop now in this world. Take a look at what God's showing you. I'm telling you. Do you know, I come out of this is the way I am. I come out of my meditation for the last number of weeks and I go, okay, God, please, I want to know the knowledge of your will for me and the power to carry it out. But don't let me fall asleep. I don't want to be so involved with whether the cat box is clean that I miss what you're doing, because this must be something big. You stopped the whole world. Stop the whole world. And now we're being shown the real crap that's in us, that we in AA are working on our crap that we hurt people with. The whole world isn't. We've got the best fellowship in the whole wide world. Best fellowship. We have 12 steps where we can hopefully be a demonstration, not ranting and raving, about, but can we be a demonstration about what's really going on? Because those are the people that I follow, my heroes. They demonstrated to me the principles of honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, courage, integrity, readiness, humility, brotherly love, justice, spirituality. All of these things, the maintenance and the spirituality, and definitely service. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know. Tomorrow, don't listen to me. Tomorrow I might have a different thing going. But right now, I'm really a proud member of Alcoholics Anonymous and a woman alcoholic that has a program to do something with her life. Thanks.
Thank you so much. God bless you. We all appreciate you. And thank you all who stayed. I know it's a long meeting and it's just, really appreciate everybody's involvement. And I appreciate you staying up so late with us tonight, Mary.
Thanks.
I know some people were turned away because, you know, we're used to 30, 40 people, and, you know, tonight it was over 100 and I'm getting a million text messages and all this kind of crazy stuff. But so we're going to up it for next week. And next week, Erica M from Iowa is going to come. Yeah, so that's going to be fun. And we're all excited about that, and everyone is welcome, and we're going to have tons of space for everybody. We'll buy more space, Chris, and we kind of know what we're dealing with. So, and the way we close this up is we mute ourselves and we quietly, inwardly say the Lord's Prayer, just kind of reflectively. So that's what we'll do. And then after that, we'll just kind of open it up for a little while for whoever wants to fellowship. And if, you know, so that's that. Let's quietly, introspectively say that we'll close this meeting with the Lord's Prayer for those who care to. Thank you all, and God bless. Thanks, Mary Thayer. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. That was awesome. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you so much, Mary Thayer.
Thank you, Mary.
You're muted, Mary.
Mary, I'm Paul in St. Croix. I'd like to ask you a question because my sister is in her final stage of life. And you said something about that. You said, was it the final stage of maturity?
Yeah, yeah.
Mary, you're muted.
So that wasn't Mary, that was me, but that's what she said.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hi, Kurt. It's good to see you. Thank you for your share. In regard to the gentleman, yes, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I studied with her group. She was the one that brought hospice to the United States and was noted for the 5 stages of grief. She always wanted to add one more, which was transcendence, which I think is true when we go through grief. Yes. At that time, I find it's very important to be as authentic as possible with somebody.
Absolutely.
And
I
because
love that.
they haven't got any time for a mask.
No,
And,
no messing around.
No messing around. And one of the things that I have found to be, people sometimes when they're passing and they don't know the words or anything, and they're more concerned about us that are living. And so my experience has been that I would ask them if they just wanted to talk about it. And they know that that means I might give them permission to talk about what the process is of dying. Because that's what, and all we can do is listen. If you've read stuff, maybe you can share that, but I haven't experienced it. I had a lot of the people, I worked with a specific population that we had a lot of death. It was another pandemic. And they asked me what was going to happen. I said, I can tell you what I've read, but you will be the ones that teach me. And they did. And it's a process of, it's probably the most sacred work I've ever done.
Wow.
One
other thing, Mary, I wish I knew you better to call you MT, but
it's all right. Good.
I will be celebrating 37 years on Saturday, and it's so refreshing to hear someone with decades of sobriety, and I can identify with it. Because sometimes I'm in my own sobriety and I go, am I sober enough? What the hell is going on here? shouldn't I feel this or be that? And you said it best. I feel the presence. I have a presence. That's my higher power. And it was refreshing to hear that from someone else saying the same, basically the same thing. I have a presence, and I'm very grateful for that. You know, to hear somebody, you remind me of a woman when I first got sober, Penny Garrett on Cape Cod. She was also like 45 years sober at the time, and she took me through the steps. And she would listen to me. Well, Paul, what's going on? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? And I'd tell her, blah, 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 blah. And she would say to me, I know, Paul, but listen, remember, no matter what's going on in your life, all is fundamentally well. I've never forgotten that. And I mean, I wasn't even 10 months sober at the time. Never forgotten. All is fundamentally well, no matter what the heck is going on in my life.
Yeah.
It's all fundamentally well. Thank you so much, Mary. You touched my heart.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Paul.
Yes.
Is that Paul from Keep It Simple?
It sure as hell is, Sherry.
Hey, how are you?
I was in Nashville for 17 years. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Whatever
I
happened
moved to St. Croix. My wife and I moved to St. Croix almost 8 years ago now.
Yeah, I heard you moved to an island. How about Bob? Whatever became of Bob?
Bob is back in Milford, Connecticut, doing well.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I talk to him regularly.
Wow, I think of you guys. And Ray Valone, I see Ray Valone every now and then.
Fabulous. It was good to hear you tonight too, Sherry.
Yeah, it's good to hear you and to see you. Yeah.
And to see you, right. Love this Zoom stuff, I'm telling you. Where's Colin? Is Colin gone? I mean, somebody jumping on from Australia?
Yeah.
We had a noon meeting where somebody jumped on from India. He was sailing around the world, coming back to St. Croix, and he was in Mumbai, India. And he said, hello, here I am. Wow.
Yeah. I just got a sponsee the other day who lives in Mumbai. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But the coolest meeting, one of the coolest meetings I went to was in Japan. They have an English speaking meeting in Japan on Friday mornings, 5:30 Central Time. And the guy from there, he's from Brentwood or Franklin, but he moved to Japan. He's been living there for some years. His name is Doug. And he chairs that meeting. And at the end of the meeting, because it was like an international, it was only about 15 or 20 of us, but everybody was from a different country. So each person said the Serenity Prayer in their own language at the end, one at a time. And then we closed it with the English version of the Serenity Prayer. That's one of the coolest experiences I have had since I was on there, other than Doug, when I was on a meeting with him, there was an earthquake in Japan while we were talking, and he acted like it was nothing. You know, he said, oh, there was an earthquake. I just got a text saying there was an earthquake. He said, y'all just witnessed an earthquake live. And so, you know, it wasn't even a big deal to him. But I've had some cool stuff happening, cool people in my life too. And so I'm just going to add Mary to it. Mary, now I see Juanita. Tom was the one.
Juanita too.
Tom was the one that told me about Mary. And I've been asking about Juanita. Juanita, I met you some years ago at the Roundup here in Nashville. And so me and Tom were talking recently because I've seen him and Juanita, I've seen them just about every weekend since the coronavirus on some kind of Zoom conference. And so, you know, that's been really cool too. But I love y'all, and I'm glad to see everybody here, and it's been a great experience. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you.
All right.
Great gathering. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah. Thank you.
Peace. Out.
Thanks. Kurt, loved hearing you tonight.
Thanks. We saw you on there.
I know, but then I wanted to get off and just meditate for a minute, and that sky, I'll put the pictures up.
Yeah,
Oh, it was
great.
just as if God came in. Thank you so much for your share.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved hearing you. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's almost like we're all kind of playing on this plane, and I think the pandemic is making people get deeper and deeper into really the message beyond, we keep saying there's this language of the, of the heart, and that we go from the head to the heart. I think it's the other way around. It's when I started to feel people, and that the feeling came, and then the thought came. It feels to me as though it's the opposite. And a number of years ago, I started to, when I listened to people, if I could feel you with my heart, I'd run all over the world. That's why I called Koyos, when I was dying there, is that I could feel what he said. And anyway, there's a message, and I feel blessed to have seen how it's bloomed in you. And I haven't met your significant other. Hello.
Linda.
Hi.
It's so nice to see you and meet you.
Oh, so nice to hear you. I've heard so many wonderful things about you, and if it wasn't for Zoom, there's no telling when I'd finally get to meet you.
I know.
So thank you. This is the second time.
Yeah. I'm happy for the two of you. Makes me
Thanks.
happy when I see what wonderful things you're doing.
Thanks.
You deserve it, friend. You deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Love you lots.
Yeah, love you too.
It's so late here. Old person needs her sleep. Love you.
Love you. Take care.
Yeah.
All right, thanks everybody. Give them a
Thank you so much. Such a beautiful meeting.
Everyone have a good night. Stay safe.
Money, Chris. Go ahead and bump that up to 2 or 3.
Great meeting. Good night.
Dude, Sam can pay for that.
That's Sam. It happened earlier, and I was like,
I did it. I added it. So it was funny too, because I added it like 10 minutes into when Mary was sharing, and then it was and then like we went 6 over. It was like the most we ever hit was 107.
The most we ever hit. I was like, man, I wonder if it's like 5 people or 50 people.
It was like 108 was the most we ever hit. It's like we can send them the bill for that.
Yeah, we'll send those 5 or 6. But I told Justin, Jay Coggins, and I were texting, and I said, we're gonna have to get Chris to pony up some money for 150, because this is unacceptable. And then it was
doesn't work that way. You go from 100 to 500. So now
does it really? What's the price?
Yeah, dude, I don't want to. It's just don't worry about it. Sam, you and Sam can take care.
He was like get fixed. That sounds like something Sam would have sent you a text and said, go ahead and fix that. Open it up, Chris. Open it up. Why don't you open it up, Chris?
Yeah, it's like it's like I have a membership, but it's just like it's like the one you got to pay for, but it's like $15 a month. But then to do the large meetings, it's an extra $50, I think. So
yeah,
I'm like, all right,
screw all that. Yeah, that was good. I'm surprised that we went from 15.
Well, it got promoted.
Yeah, now it's opened it up to the mouth. Somehow we blew through the ceiling.
Well, thank God. I mean, finally, it's an emotional sobriety meeting. Finally, there can be some actual discussion of emotion. We've been kind of like floundering through it. It's just trying to do this immense meeting. So
yeah.
Maybe now I can probably
a lot of fun when it was just 6. It was a lot of fun and a lot of the same things every week when it was just 6 of us.
Oh God, it was just 6 of us. That's great. Those were the days. All right, man.
I'll see you, bud.
I'm gonna shut this down. I'll see you.